So hello and welcome to today's Thompson-Nicola Regional District Emergency Operations Center information briefing for wildfires that are burning within the Thompson-Nicola region. My name is Colton Davies. I'm the information officer for the TNRD. Speaking to you today from the TNRD Emergency Operations Center located in Kamloops, which is situated in the unceded territory of the Tk'emlúps to Secwepemc, within the unceded ancestral lands of Secwepemc Nation. Thank you for attendees who have so far joined on. Also for a number of panelists who we have who will be able to provide updates on fires within the Thompson-Nicola region today. We have the TNRD EOC. We have representatives from the BC Wildfire Service, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and BC Hydro. Unlike what we did last Friday in our meeting, we'll be holding all questions to the end of our presenters during this meeting here. So you're welcome to put your hand up at any point or to write questions in the chat, and we'll filter through those as they come in and address hands in the order that they are put up. But again, we'll be holding all of those questions until the end of our presentations. Just an advisory as well that if you have very specific questions about your property within any of our TNRD electoral areas that are impacted by wildfire currently, we'll take all of those through our Emergency Operations Center, as we've been doing for some weeks now with one-on-one discussions. We'll be able to provide lots of general and localized information through this update, but for very specific one-on-one questions such as access permit requests and things of that nature, do continue to contact our Emergency Operations Center. For those who can't make this meeting or can't make it in its entirety, this meeting is being recorded. We will have it available shortly once we're finished on the TNRD YouTube page. We'll share that link out once it's available on our Twitter and Facebook pages as well on the TNRD pages. So just wanted to start with a brief update from the TNRD Emergency Operations Center on the status that exists with wildfires and properties impacted within our region. We are still looking at 7 total evacuation orders that are in place across the TNRD. We have 4 separate orders affecting properties within the TNRD due to the Bush Creek East fire, and we have 1 order in place for each of the Rossmore Lake fire, the Stein Mountain fire, and the Kukipi Creek fire at this time as we speak. Those are the 4 fires of note within the Thompson-Nicola region, which we'll be addressing here today. I did want to share my screen quickly. We did this at the start of our meeting on Friday, and I just wanted to quickly go over some of our boundary information. And I think I might be sharing. Yes, I am sharing the correct screen here. So again, we're addressing properties as best we can here that are within the Thompson-Nicola region. I won't spend too much time on boundaries surrounding the Bush Creek East fire. Of course, orders and alerts are the responsibility of local governments, as we've addressed and made the public aware of as best we can. And our property at the TNRD, our responsibility is to protect life and safety when we have an emergency such as wildfires like we have now. Orders and alerts are the responsibility of the specific local government for your area, though. For the Bush Creek East fire, for example, there are a lot of local jurisdictions that are impacted in different areas by this fire. You can see here our boundaries on the east include 2 of our electoral areas. So along generally the west side of Adams Lake, the east side of Adams Lake up to a certain point. We have 1 property on Rawson Road within TNRD jurisdiction, and the Columbia-Shuswap Regional District and Adams Lake IR1 further down on the east side there. Turtle Valley is within the Thompson-Nicola Regional District. The cutoff for our boundary is along Highway 1 here, essentially. So you have a small strip that's Adams Lake IR, and you have Little Shuswap Lake, Squilax to Secwepemc Ulu, which is also impacted by this fire and with evacuation orders or alerts. Further down, you have Nisconlith, which does have an alert in place as well. Village of Chase is its own jurisdiction, which has its own evacuation alert in place. So all of these jurisdictions are separate from orders or alerts related to the TNRD. Again, it's crucial that you get in touch with your local government for the status of orders and alerts. Certainly for all residents that contact our TNRD, if you're not sure, we are happy to point you in the right direction. I'm using a TNRD map here just to show the different boundaries. When we go over to the general Rossmore Lake fire area, generally in the circle where my mouse is here, the boundaries are a little less complicated on this fire, as there are no other jurisdictions in this area. The city of Kamloops did briefly have an evacuation alert on in late July, but this is essentially the jurisdiction of the TNRD within our electoral areas. We do have several electoral area boundaries within this fire area, but all TNRD and through the same emergency operations center nonetheless. And when we go over to two fires of note that are burning in the Fraser Canyon, the Stein Mountain fire north of Lytton, there are a number of TNRD properties on evacuation order or alert. And if you look at our map for these orders in the Fraser Canyon, the TNRD maps look a little bit, they're a little different. They're not as round or square. TNRD properties are intertwined with a number of First Nations boundaries as well. In this case, for an area in the Stein Mountain, due to the Stein Mountain fire, the TNRD intertwines with parts of the Lytton First Nation. So residents with properties within Lytton First Nation would be advised to receive updates from their local government in that case. We are working closely with the Lytton First Nation as well in lockstep on the status of orders and alerts, and continuing to take our recommendations on orders and alerts generally from the BC Wildfire Service. And now when we go further down to where the order and alert boundary is, due to the Kukipi Creek fire, there's a number of jurisdictions that are impacted. Again, we have portions of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District. On the southern ends of the fire, there are orders and alerts within the Fraser Valley Regional District. And there's a number of First Nations jurisdictions, approximately 5, with orders or alerts in place as well. That spans from the Boothroyd IR, including Kanaka Bar Indian Band, Siska First Nation, Scuppa First Nation, and the Lytton First Nation also has properties impacted in this area. And at this time, separately, the village of Lytton does also have an evacuation alert in place for the entirety of the village of Lytton. So the boundaries can be a little complicated or convoluted. So I just wanted to make clear again the areas where we have jurisdiction as the TNRD for orders and alerts that are in place. We know that some of these orders and alerts have been in place for some time, and the situation is different in each case, and we're certainly focused and working as quickly as we can to ensure that as soon as it's deemed safe to return to properties that are on order and alert, whether that's due to fire activity or egress or danger trees or other risks, that we're downgrading or rescinding those alerts as quickly as we possibly can. So what I'm going to do now is stop sharing my screen. If you have questions for the TNRD and any of the information I've shared here, again, we'll be holding questions to the end. I wanted to turn it over to the BC Wildfire Service. We're going to have an update from the Adams Complex. So that would be the Bush Creek East Fire, as well as the Rossmore Lake Fire. And then we'll turn it over to the Canyon Complex for the Wildfire Service for the Stein Mountain and Kukipi Creek fires for updates on those. So I'll turn it now to, I believe it's Mike McCulley, Information Officer we have today for the Adams Complex. And Mike, please go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Colton. Again, Mike McCulley here. I'm the Information Officer on the Adams Lake Complex, which includes, as Colton said, both the Bush Creek East Wildfire and the Rossmore Lake Wildfire. So start before I share my screen with just a little bit of our sort of weather of the day. You know, as most people know by now, we didn't see the winds that we were expecting on either fire yesterday. However, we did see some wind increase through this morning, through late last night into the morning, and again into the day today. We did see some growth on certain pockets of the fire that we'll talk about, but generally speaking, we've had good success so far keeping most of the flanks of both of these large wildfires where we need them to be. A couple small exceptions that I'll get into, but you know, the weather wasn't as windy as we thought. Still more to come. Definitely it's cooler today. I'm in Salmon Arm right now. It's cooler, and there was actually a small amount of precipitation falling. We're not counting on that. No rain is rain until it's in the gauge, as we like to say. So just a little bit of a precursor on the weather that we've had across both fires. And I'll now share my screen. Cole, maybe you can just let me know when you can see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. There you are, Mike.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start actually on the Rossmore Lake fire today. Start with the numbers, still just around 11,000 hectares in size. We have seen some growth on a couple little flanks, a few small bulges in our guard line that we've been able to sort of contain and circle and get back within the line. Around 11,000 hectares again. We've got still large contingent of heavy equipment on there, almost 40 pieces of iron out there, around 138 firefighters. And in the complex between both fires, we have 18 helicopters that we share and use accordingly. Again, not a ton of growth on this fire, which is good news. We did see a little more wind on this fire than we did on the rest of our complex yesterday, and it started a little bit earlier, just different elevation and a little flatter terrain can cause that. So I don't have a ton to say about it. We know that temperatures will be cooler. No big growth expected. No large scale fronts or running pieces of fire coming off of this fire. We did have some plant ignitions down on the bottom southeast flank a few days ago that we were looking at. We did not get to undertake those simply because it was very smoky. We couldn't safely do that. And in the end, the fire came and cleaned a lot of that up for us, just with the way the prevailing winds were blowing. So feeling pretty good about the way things are looking on this fire. The cooler temperatures will certainly help us. I will go into a little more detail on the Adams Lake fire. So the fire size, as I've been mentioning throughout the week here, changes on this fire regularly. And a lot of that has to do with the really misshapen perimeter of this fire and the multiple fingers that we have. It's not an easy fire to get a measurement on, simply because it is a human interpretation of either a GPS track from a helicopter or a satellite image that we pull this from. So fire size has actually been bouncing up and down a little, but generally it's around 43,000 hectares in size, still out of control. We have a large component of staff on this fire, over 320 ground crews, including some of the local crews that we have hired to work within our division Charlie, which is in this North Shore area here, Lee Creek, Scotch Creek, Celestia, Squilax area. That's been great news for us. Get into a little bit of specifics now. So certainly the most active portion of this fire has been in the area down around Sorrento and Turtle Valley. I know that yesterday this was very visible, especially on the Turtle Valley side. There was a portion of fuel up on the top on a knob above the community. The fire really liked it. It was a bit of an open slash type, so it was a little drier and also a little more exposed to the effects of inversion. In the morning, the fire was quite active at higher elevations, simply because the cooler air is trapped lower in the valley. Up at the top of the hill and upslope is a little bit warmer and drier. So when you mix that in with an open fuel type and some slash on a rocky knob, you certainly had active fire. And that's what we saw coming off of this knob up above the valley yesterday. Not a lot of change there, not a lot of significant risk in our mind. We do have a contingent of structural task force engines patrolling day and night in here, and we have ground crews working here as well. So we'll continue that effort as long as is needed. I will move now over to the Sorrento side of things. So we did see some growth on this fire through the night last night and into the morning. We did see the fire come right down to the train tracks in certain areas here. The fire has kind of moved, this line is not totally accurate. It's moved quite a ways out here and moved down one of these draws with some downslope winds. It's creeping down slowly. We do have bucket ships working on it pretty hard this morning, and they've been bucketing. Two large heavy bucket ships have been bucketing on this flank of the fire for the better part of a week now, running full days, continuing to cool and slow that down. We did again see the fire move downhill, and so last night our night crew that we had out, we call it a swing shift. We did have them out there just for this very reason, and they were working along guard line in this area. They were able to hold the fire where it is. They worked alongside the local fire department, and of course our task force of engines were out as well. And CP Rail, was also actively working on this spot with us. So a good collaborative effort here, and so far we're able to hold the fire where it is. This did result in some different recommendations for orders to the local government, but for now we're feeling somewhat comfortable about it. We will continue to ramp this up. We added some unit crews. That's a 20-person BC Wildfire Service unit crews down to work this line and continue to hold the fire where it is. And things are looking okay for now because the winds have subsided in this area. We'll work now up into what we call the Lee Creek shadow. Again, you can see very clearly this shadow that was not affected by the fire, mostly as a result of the planned ignition that occurred along this line, several weeks ago or a week or so ago during the wind. We did have our unit crews again working these two shoulders of this fire, and they have now completed most of that work. They're still in the area patrolling as they are through the rest of this North Shore area. We have been infrared scanning through these portions of the fire, which allow us to send our crews in and do some hot spotting, which means they're using the data from the infrared scan to find hot spots more efficiently and get in there and put them out. I now will move over to the Magna Bay side of things. This is an area that has some significant terrain. There's some channels and valleys here that the winds like to move around, and we've been getting as much local advice and support on how those winds move in there as we can. We did have our crews sort of start down in the Onyx Creek drainage. They anchored in quite nicely and have been working guard around and up, we call it around the horn, so around this piece of the flank and up in to connect with guard line that the locals have been working on in that area. Yesterday, they did finally make contact in there, and we're really happy to be tagging in and working together with those folks. In fact, some of the locals that have been working in there so hard for so many days have actually taken a bit of day of rest, well deserved. We're grateful for their support. Our crews will continue to work in there, and when I say our crews, I mean our BC Wildfire Service unit ground crews. There is somewhere between 30 and 50 of them, and they also have some Mexican firefighters with them that are working the flank. Once the local contingent can get a bit of a rest through today, they will come back online and we will move together side by side to finish to continue the work to protect these communities on this flank of the fire. So making some good progress there. Latest update as of this morning is we did not see a really big change in fire activity. I'm still waiting for some operational updates. I know our staff are out flying this area right now and looking at it, but no big red flags going off for me at this time. Yesterday was a day of consolidation on our fires. With the predicted winds, what consolidation means, it doesn't mean we're leaving the fire. It doesn't mean we're stopping to work on these flanks. It just means that we're bringing our people a little closer together in the more concentrated areas, not so far out on the line that they may be, their safety could be impacted. So we just had some consolidation going on. And it also allows us to have our crews focused a little closer to the communities and a little closer to the values in case the fire does pick up. That's what yesterday looked like. Today, we're comfortable that we can spread back out and continue the good hard work on all sections of the guard line. That is probably where I will leave it today, Colton, unless there's anything missed or any specific questions.
Thank you for your update, Mike. Just one quick question before we go over to the Canyon Complex. And do you have any update on Logan Bear Creek Road and the finger of the fire that's on that portion of this place?
I don't. No news is good news, I think. I know with all of the roads in there, we have been working as hard as we can to make sure they're safe from a fire perspective risk. I was out in those areas yesterday, and there's certainly an awful lot of work going on. You can see a really big component of BC Hydro crews out there. They're managing traffic on the road, but there's stellar bunchers working to firm up danger trees. Large groups of equipment and people working to get those roads open as safely as, or get them into a safe state as quickly as possible. From a fire risk perspective, though, we're feeling pretty comfortable about things in those areas.
Okay, thank you for the information as always, Mike. We appreciate your update, and we'll keep you on for questions that may come as well. We'll move over now to the Canyon Complex. And I believe it's Jessica Mack, Information Officer, who has an update for us on the Stein Mountain and the Kukipi Creek fire. I hope I got that all correct, but Jessica, assuming I did, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, as he mentioned, Jessica Mack, Information Officer for the Canyon Complex, and then also on the call is Steve Lemon, our Incident Commander as well. So I'll just do a bit of an overview. Yesterday afternoon, we started to get rain that progressively moved north throughout our complex. So we saw upwards of 16 millimeters of rain on our southern flank of the Kukikbi wildfire. So kind of in that Washtalk area, we saw a good amount of rain, and that did progress up north into our Kukikbi fire. And then we saw a little bit less rain on our Stein Mountain fire. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Just one moment, please. And I believe that that should be sharing on your end now.
Certainly looks good. Perfect.
So I will just start off here with the Stein Mountain fire. So K7-1634. On that incident, we have 57 personnel, 4 operational staff, and 12 helicopters that are assigned to our complex and shared throughout the complex as required. We do have 4 pieces of heavy equipment, and we do have structure protection that is still supporting this incident as well. As I mentioned, we did receive some rain onto that incident, but not as much as in the southern portions of our complex. On that south flank, so kind of in this corner here, we did see some increased activity on that flank of the fire yesterday, but it was where that activity is areas that we were planning to do some planned ignitions in that area. And so it kind of just cleaned up some of our objectives that we had here. And we're aiming to push that into an old burn scar from 2022 in here. And so the activity that we did see was doing objectives that we had already planned for that to do. Today, we have unit crews that are using a direct attack both on this south flank here and on this northern flank. So with that rain that we did receive, we are able to go more direct to the fire's edge and work onto those areas because it's a little bit safer for our crews to do that. Last night, we continued to have crews that worked partially through the night to do some monitoring patrolling along the West Side Road, so along here. And last night was the last night that we are going to do that. And we are just going to have our crews be working throughout the day just to make some good progress as we are seeing a little bit of a downturn in weather right now. We do have structure protection that is demobilizing some equipment where we are able to do so. And we will continue to test and maintain the structure protection equipment in areas where we will continue to have it. So I will just move over to the Kukikbi fire. So for that incident here, so on this northern section, we've made a lot of really great progress. We have had some planned ignitions that have occurred between the Siwash Creek and the Siska Creek here, and that has done a really great job of securing the line in that area. So we have been focusing on the last few days doing mop-up and patrol operations. So kind of behind the Siska Creek here into the Rock Bluffs, we've been having crews going more direct into there. And then above the Kanaka Bar community just up here, we've been doing a lot of mop-up and patrol. So just digging out any hotspots, patrolling for anything near the fire's edge, and just ensuring that any hotspots that are found are extinguished. Then I'm just going to move down into this area here. So in this area, we have what we're calling the Mohawkum Guard, and then we have the Mohawkum FSR. So again, in here, we have crews that are doing more direct attack today. As I mentioned, we're seeing really decreased fire behavior due to that rain that we did receive in that area. And we are able to work on the fire's edge a little bit more closely just due to it being safer for our crews to do so. We still are having line locators doing some assessment for control lines in areas kind of east of the Mohawkum FSR up in here. Just to, if we do need to add in some additional lines, we will have an area that's already assessed and planned out in that area. And then in the Nahatlatch area, so I'll just start off with this southwestern area here. So we have crews that are working along the Log Creek drainage here. So crews are working up in this terrain and working upslope. This is quite some steep area, so they're making progress going up here and just working where it's safe for them to do so. And then we also have we have structure protection that's working kind of in the Hannah Lake area. And we have a machine guard that went into place just right up above the Hannah Lake area. And we are finishing off with hand line here today. We continue in the kind of this area here near Wash Talk. We continue to do more direct and indirect attack again, and have sprinklers set up just right below the Wash Talk area as well. So I think I will just maybe give you the size on the Kukipi fire. So the size is 16,961 hectares. We have not seen much growth for the last few days. Things have been looking good. We did have the increased winds on Monday that we did see that shifted from the north to the south. The areas that we did see fire activity, it just burned out some of those fuels that are within the fire perimeter, and we did not see any growth outside of our containment lines that we already have in place. So I'll just leave it there, and if there's any questions, we can address those at the end.
Okay, excellent update. Thank you, Jessica Mack, Information Officer for the BC Wildfire Service on the Kukipi Creek and Stein Mountain fires in the Fraser Canyon, the Canyon Complex. So we'll go now to an update from the Ministry of Transportation. We have Katie Ward, Deputy Director of the Southern Interior Region, for an update on roadways. Katie, if you're able to unmute, and please take it away.
Hi, thank you. So maybe I'll follow a similar trajectory. So as most folks are aware, we are open on Highway 1 from Chase to Sorrento, and we do have delays out there for utility works ongoing, but otherwise traffic's been flowing well. On pretty much the majority of side roads that are impacted off of the Bush Creek Adams Lake fire, we do have active danger tree falling and assessment ongoing, and that includes on Locan Bear Road. I believe they paused yesterday for wildfire activity, but are back at it today. We have, many folks would have heard, we had our holding bridge impacted by wildfire. And we have been able to put some temporary supports in there and allow for single lane alternating traffic for emergency access in the evening hours, which is super helpful. And we are excited to be able to get that done very quickly. Work is ongoing out there as well. Moving on to the Fraser Canyon. So Highway 1 did open yesterday. So through the Fraser Canyon, we opened at approximately 10 a.m. yesterday. And we did do a proactive closure overnight due to the high amount of rainfall that was forecasted. Had some small activity, rockfall activity near the Yale area overnight. But our maintenance contractors and our geotech were able to get out there first thing in the morning, and that was cleaned up and opened by 7:45 this morning. We do hope that we'll be able to continue that open. There's no heavy rains forecasted in the immediate future, and we'll do some further assessments as the fire behavior ceases out there. And that is about all for our infrastructure.
Excellent. Thank you for the information, Katie. Fortunately, the rocks on the road closure near Yale, right when the highway access was restored from Lytton to Boston Bar, was short-lived this morning, it appeared, and normal egress again through that area. We'll get an update. We'll keep Katie on the line for questions that might come. We'll have one more update to come here from BC Hydro. I believe we have a couple, two BC Hydro staff who are here, Susan Edgell and Ryan Engman, I believe, and I hope I don't have that wrong, but I'll pass it over to BC Hydro for the update now.
Fantastic. Yes, thank you very much. This is Susan from BC Hydro. There we go. Thanks for having us on the call today. First of all, we're really thrilled to be here to be able to give you a little bit of an update as to some of the things that have been happening out at the Shuswap, Adams Lake area. I have with me on the phone today Dag Sharman. He's the manager of community relations in the Southern Interior. And also we have Ryan Angman, who is a field manager and has been spending a lot of time out at the Shuswap, of course, so he'll have some great details for us. But I thought I'd just start with a quick overview and start with a bit of good news, actually. Crews were able to re-energize the Little Shuswap Sewer Lagoon Tuesday afternoon out at the Little Shuswap Band. This is critical infrastructure, which is one of Hydro's goals, is to re-energize the critical infrastructure first. So this is a great win for the community. And I just did receive confirmation, actually, about half an hour ago that the Scotch Creek Medical Center has been re-energized. So these are some small wins for the community, and Hydro is pleased to be able to have these little wins happening right now. Where things are at today, the Little River Crossing at Squilax Bridge has now, that infrastructure is back in place. The crews in the area today are working on, of course, putting holes, are digging the holes and putting the holes in the ground. That's happening along several areas. The first is the straight stretch between Squilax Bridge and Holding Road. Also, this is taking place today between Lee Creek and Scotch Creek, and Scotch Creek to Solista. So in total, we have 430 poles that need to be replaced. So as you can imagine, the work is being cut out for our crews right now. But the good news is, as of right now, about 50% of these holes have been dug and prepped. So that's about 250 or thereabouts. So that's great. One of the biggest challenges remaining, of course, is those danger trees. I've heard them talked about on this call already, but that's an ongoing process as the crews make their way from one area to another. We have to really be careful to assess and make sure none of the existing trees are going to be an issue as we restring our wires. And as mentioned earlier this week, we do have about 120 crews working in the area. So we'll save our questions to the end, but for more specific questions, of course, I'm going to throw it over to Ryan Angman, who will be able to help us answer some of the questions that people may have. So thank you.
Okay, excellent. And thank you very much, Susan, for the update. Certainly a lot of work from a lot of crews going on in our fire affected areas, including BC Hydro. And it's great to hear these frequent updates as well. That concludes really our presentations, a little bit shorter than what we saw last week, a couple fewer staff on the call, but certainly we're able to now take any questions that are here. There are some in the chat that I'm going to work through. So I'd advise those who are on the call who have questions for any of the panelists here to either raise your hand or continue using the chat, and we'll go through questions in the order that they've come in. So there's a question in the chat. I believe this would be for Mike McCulley and the BC Wildfire Service. Confirmation on the current status on Locan Bear Creek, and is fire activity stable in that area at this juncture? Is there any new activity today? If you would be so kind to take that question, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. I think I talked a little bit about it earlier. I had a similar question. I'll certainly have to get some more detail. Generally for us, though, in the interior portions of the fire, we're just not seeing big fire activity today, to be frank. You know, again, the challenging areas for us are Turtle Valley side, which I talked about, the Sorrento side. So I can certainly try to find out more specific detail, but in general, we're having fairly quiet fire activity on most of those portions of the fire.
Okay. Excellent news. Thank you, Mike. A question from Michelle. I believe this would be for MOTI. Do we have an estimate on timing of access through Holding Road to the Adams Lake Ferry for residents on the east side of the lake, Rawson Road? I'll say, of course, the evacuation order that's currently in place on the west side of the lake would factor into that as well. I know we talked about that on the call that we had last week, and the TNRD EOC director talked about, you know, depending on fire activity and the risk as assessed by the BC Wildfire Service, it would depend on timing for when we are recommended that it's safe for fire activity to go from an order to alert, as well as egress or danger trees as well. But Katie, if you wanted to tack on to that as well.
Yeah, I was going to sort of reference the same point that the order is probably the piece that will take most time. We are actively working on danger trees in the area, and I think keeping good pace with the progress of the fire, hydro, all of those things that need to align.
We'll be sure to keep residents in the area apprised as more information comes available as work progresses. And thank you, Katie. A question from Little Creek Ranch, which is Locan Bear Creek Road, is about who do I connect with to inquire about the status of an order and the timing of being downgraded to an alert. Certainly that would be the TNRD Emergency Operations Center. We can be contacted at 250-377-7188, 250-377-7188. Information that I have available at this time as we've started this call is we're not at a point yet of being able to lift that order or downgrade to an alert. And it would depend on a number of factors, some of which I mentioned in our previous answer. But this is constantly changing day by day, certainly, and sometimes multiple times per day in terms of the status of orders and alerts, depending on a number of factors. So be sure to continue to connect with us with that question, and we'll be sure to let you know the moment that we have more information. Another question for MOTI from, I don't have a name, but initials, is the Holding Road Bridge, when it may be open, or when will the bridge on Holding be open during the day, even if single lane traffic? And I suppose that's for obviously public travel, but Katie, you've scanned over that. Did you have anything else to add on the Holding Bridge?
Yeah, we do think we'll be able to support single lane traffic throughout the day. We're saying early September, as in, the first couple days of next week. And again, that will largely depend on the access into the area with the broader lens of wildfire activity, evacuation orders, hydro lines, danger trees, all those things.
Excellent. And thank you for your answer, Katie. I've just seen a question come in from Penny from Turtle Valley. There was a question about Turtle Valley Squilax Road and the condition of the road when an infrastructure assessment is going to be done. Is there I believe this question was also asked by Penny last Friday, but perhaps there's an email we could pass along to Penny to get in touch with MOTI. Katie, would that be your counterpart, perhaps Eric Blackmuth or yourself?
Yeah, certainly we can have Eric reach out. And I think the initial assessments after the fire were promising, but certainly once we get through this immediate response, we can take a look at it.
Excellent. Thank you for the information. We don't see any more questions in the chat. I don't see any hands up at this juncture. So we may see a trickle in here, but I think I'll just give a bit more information. Again, I've reiterate some of what we've said in our most recent meeting. And before I do that, I'll go to Mike McCulley. You have your hand up, sir.
Hey, sorry, yeah, just was able to get a little bit of details on that Locan Bear area, just for folks that were asking. So certainly, yeah, not significant fire behavior in there as mentioned, but still some risks. So we do have a contingent of Mexican firefighters that are working hard on that flank. And you will start to see, if you can't see it, we will have a K-Max helicopter that'll be bucketing there to support that operation a little bit, but no big significant growth. Just we do have crews in there, and we will be using helicopters to support them.
Excellent. Thank you for tracking down the information, Mike. And as you've been speaking, a question has come in the chat from Chris Jones asking, has the west evacuation order boundary of the Rossmore Lake fire changed along Lac Lejeune Road? So I suppose that would potentially mean areas such as the Stake Lake ski trails, McConnell Lake, is what I'm picturing when I hear that question. But so the short answer is no changes on that boundary area of the fire. That's constantly being assessed. Certainly we know there are no obviously primary residences impacted by that area of the evacuation order. Obviously these are a couple of multiple civic addresses that are in that area, and we're continuing to assess that and take recommendations from the BC Wildfire Service. And please continue to get in touch with our EOC if you have continued questions on that flank of the fire. A question again that's come in now, and this would be for the TNRD EOC from Daryl Jacobs. What will trigger a downgrade or move of the evac order in Turtle Valley with no damage anywhere? And certainly it's fortunate that we haven't seen structure damage in Turtle Valley. And no, I know Hydro has stated that there's no hydro infrastructure damage in Turtle Valley, which is probably a bit further away from the fire boundaries. But again, for downgrading or moving the evac order, would depend on the fire activity. Certainly, there's been a cold front and a change from the hotter weather that's come in, which is positive as we start to transition away from that hotter summer weather and the nights get longer as well. We'll continue to take a recommendation from the BC Wildfire Service for when it's deemed safe for properties on order to be downgraded to alert. And hopefully we can have good news sooner than later for a number of properties in Turtle Valley. I believe approximately 57 addressed properties within TNRD electoral area L in Turtle Valley remain on evacuation order. And that's coming up on 2 weeks now. So it's certainly understood by our staff that any length of time to be out of your property for an evacuation order is challenging. And obviously a lot of residents want to be able to return and have access. So all of these things are in mind as we look for, again, hopefully good news on that in the near future. And here's a question for the Canyon Complex and Jessica. A question from Charles about what is the northern part of the Kukipi Creek wildfire, both on the east and west flanks? If you wanted to, and I see you shared your screen already. Excellent. So I'll let you take that, Jessica.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so the northern flank of the fire is this perimeter here. So if I just scroll out a little bit right here. So this is the northeastern side of the fire is kind of near Kanakabar and Siska. And then further up, we have Lytton and Scuppa and those communities in on this kind of corner here. This is the area that we've been focusing on the most with our resources. So we do have firefighters that are working in and around this area. And then on this northwestern side of the Fraser, west of the Fraser River, we don't have resources that are directly in here right now. The terrain is quite steep in this area. And so we did see some fire activity on the Monday here, but most of that was doing some really great work for us and just kind of cleaning out some fuels in this area within the fire perimeter. But things on this northeastern flank of the fire, east of the Fraser River, have been looking really good for the last several days.
Excellent. Thank you for that update, Jessica. And it's a huge help to be able to have the very handy and easily accessible visual representation there. And this may be a question for the BC Wildfire Service. I'm not sure if there's a way that this can be answered from Karen. And I say that as I'm unfamiliar with it, but the question is the big helicopter Coulson Aviation, I believe that would be the company, Coulson Aviation, coming to the Shuswap? I don't know if we'd have information from one of our IOs on hand.
I will take a run at this and see if either Incident Commander Lemon or Jessica can sort of chime in. I would say with all of our aviation assets, they're pretty agile and nimble. We have them available within a large geographic area as a fire center in case they're needed. They are often assigned to an incident, but in a day like today where, or maybe yesterday more so, where there's some lightning in other parts of the province, those assets are needed to be nimble and be able to move around. And we will take them from the active fire and use them for priorities that come up. So that's a precursor to saying I'm really not sure exactly where that particular helicopter is, but the reasons why are because we try to keep our fleet very nimble, very agile, and moving around as and when needed. So I don't exactly know which helicopter that is and where it is, but just to paint a picture of how that looks, they're moving all day in some cases. I would say the same is true for our air tanker fleet. In fact, our air tankers can start their morning in Abbotsford and sometimes finish their night in Prince George and have 5 or 6 different stops in between. So just trying to paint a picture to folks of how much we do move our fleet around to adjust to risk and how nimble and agile we try to be through a day. So long answer to say, I'm really not sure.
Okay, appreciate you answering that question to the best of your ability, Mike. Certainly questions for a general in nature like that or more wide rounding as well. There is BC Wildfire Service contact information on each of the incident web pages on the Wildfire Service site. So if you're looking at the Bush Creek East fire page, the Rossmore Lake fire, or other fires of note in the region, there is contact information for each of those fire complexes. And recommend folks referring to those contact information spots as well for questions about fire response, fire activity, or resources such as that too, but obviously happy to help on this call. There's a question in the chat for the Canyon Complex and Jessica, which would be from Fred. The question is about Laluisan Creek across from Stein Mountain. And I suppose the question is, what about Laluisan Creek? And I suppose it's about proximity of the fire to that area. I don't know if we would have any information if I were to pass it to you, Jessica.
Yeah, I'll just quickly share my screen here again. So what we're calling the Eisman fire, Eisman Creek fire, that one sits right here. And so we do have resources that are on that incident. So we have 5 personnel that are working on that one. And then again, we have the aircraft that are shared between the complex. And then we do have 1 piece of heavy equipment that's working on that incident. So yesterday we did have helicopters that were were able to get some visibility and provide some bucketing support onto that incident throughout most of the day. We were able to put in a heavy equipment control line yesterday on the northeastern flank, so over here, and then heavy equipment are going to be beginning tying in that southwest guard into an old burn scar. So the burn scar from 2021 over in this section here. We didn't see any significant growth, and the size on that one is about 115 hectares in size.
Okay, excellent information. Thank you for that, Jessica. Hopefully that helps answer the question for Fred in the chat. I don't see any other questions that are active at this point, so I'll just make a couple notes for closing from the TNRD EOC's point of view. Before I do that, I'll go to Susan, who has your hand up for BC Hydro. Susan.
Thank you. Thank you, Colton. My colleague Mooney Sani is on the call with Hydro, and he's looking to find out who he can connect with the BC Wildfire Service in regard to the Bear Mountain fire that's burning near Harrison Hot Springs. Is there someone that he can connect with on the call?
There's no one on this call, but I can connect with him afterwards and provide the right contact information.
Okay, that would be greatly appreciated. We'll grab maybe just put your email address in the chat. That would be lovely.
Perfect, will do, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Susan, and for the help, Jessica. I've also am just about to put the contact information in the chat for the TNRD Emergency Operations Center. The email and the phone number are there now. Please take that down if you don't already have that information handy for contacting our EOC. If you have questions about your property, about the status of orders and alerts in your area, and for related questions, we're happy to provide you the information that we have, or provide you the contact information or resources for where you can find the answers to your questions. We do have an upcoming call planned on Friday. That would be September 1st in the afternoon. We will have details confirmed tomorrow. We're looking at approximately 1,300 hours for the time of that call, the same as today. And that call will be similar to what we had last Friday. We'll focus on the Adams complex and particularly the Adams Lake area and recovery work and ongoing work that's happening really in that area that's been impacted by the Bush Creek East fire. Certainly last week, our panelists were able to speak about a number of areas nearby related to the Bush Creek East and other incidents as well, but that was particularly the focus. So we'll have another call on Friday, and we'd advise you to please keep informed through our TNRD channels for future upcoming meetings as information becomes available, and do continue to contact our TNRD Emergency Operations Center. We do have as well a couple notes here There's information to come for residents who have been on order without power in the Adams Lake area for some time on fridge and freezer removal. I did receive that information from our Emergency Operations Center before we started this call at 1300 hours, and we will have more information to provide during that Friday afternoon call for residents impacted in that area. Certainly that is at this point within TNRD boundaries for our electoral areas, the lone area that has been impacted by not only a significant structure loss, but a significant power outage for the area that is under evacuation order. We do have a TNRD recovery manager in place who can give you the best advice and direction on supports to access, what to bring to your insurance provider, help you through the process, which can obviously be complicated, working through the layers that go with support and recovery from a wildfire incident. So continue to contact our TNRD EOC as well if you have specific recovery information that you're looking for, and we can give you the best information and direct you to the TNRD recovery manager. If you're not on the internet, again, please continue to contact the EOC at 250-377-7188. I'll share my screen very quickly here and show you our webpage where we're housing our most up-to-date information that the TNRD is able to provide and the current status on our evacuation orders and alerts. You can get to this page by typing tnrd.ca/emergency into your browser. When you're on our webpage, you can also go under services, and if you click on emergency services, it will take you right to this page. You can find emergency information updates, a list of orders and alerts, which is also further down this page, and a number of helpful resources, such as links to these public meetings. We have a returning home package prepared for evacuees when they are being downgraded from order to alert. We also have the interactive emergency map. I talked about the complicated boundaries with local jurisdiction for issuing orders and alerts. And this map is extremely helpful for showing areas that are currently under order or alert. The numbers on the side that you see are specifically for what the TNRD Emergency Operations Center has issued for orders and alerts. But we also do have highlights on this map for other jurisdictions. So it's helpful that way because we're not just showing you only TNRD areas that are on order or alert. For example, at the Bush Creek East Fire, you can see all of the surrounding orders and alerts, whether they are our area or not. This information isn't issued or uploaded by us, but it is on this common map. And this can be a one-stop shop if you're looking for a specific area. Of course, when inquiring about the status of orders and alerts within TNRD boundaries, those are the only ones that we are able to speak to. So that information is also on this page, as well as a list of current events and past alerts as we revise or remove orders and alerts, as we have done over the last several weeks. So thank you again for our panelists from the BC Wildfire Service, from the Ministry of Transportation, and from BC Hydro, and thank you for attendees who have taken the time to join this call today. We'll end this meeting there for Wednesday, August 30th, 2023 on our wildfire information update for the Thompson-Nicola region. So thank you again for taking part. Please take care and stay safe.